part 2 of theme 1, the fighting of the Southern efforts to go back to that time of antebellum slavery. The federal government had to create the Freedmen's Bureau in order to fight this. The Freedmen's Bureau obviously was a federal agency designed to protect both blacks and whites displaced by the war, which means they were trying to help out the people in the South to overcome and rebuild. They provided legal services to the freedmen because they are going to need help with those sharecropping contracts and cropland system to establish schools, and they did a few other things, but these are the big ones that the Freedmen's Bureau, trying to train them to get back into, this new freed lifestyle. In other words, from the first part of this, the South was acting like it had won the Civil War. It was going from a time period of justice, openly trying to help African Americans, to a time where African Americans are back into a system of domination. So the Union had to respond. They had to act against these Southern efforts. And this is where we get radical Reconstruction. Congress refused to admit Southern officials back into Congress, literally got up and locked the door so that the Southern Confederate officials couldn't come in. And they started passing legislation. And it was the Southerners that kept blocking legislation from the North. Remember the whole balance of power thing. So with the Southerners out of the picture, the Northern radical Republicans in Congress could start passing legislation to help out the freedmen. With the 1866 election, the Congress had an overwhelming mandate to do so. And because they had this overwhelming mandate, they could override any presidential vetoes. And at one point, they even impeached President Johnson when he tried to cause problems. Now, what is this radical mandate? The public was concerned about all the violence against the freedmen, all the issues against the Southerners were trying to bring up against the freedmen. So Congress had a mandate, which means they had the right, or the people had given them additional authority to protect the freedmen. And they passed the Congressional Reconstruction Act, also known as the Military Reconstruction Act. They broke the South into 5 military districts, and they were going to use the federal troops to protect African Americans and their freedoms in the South. South Carolina was in Military District 2. And here's that right there. Congress used the military to protect the rights of freedmen listed in the Reconstruction Amendments. That's a big idea, the Reconstruction Amendments. The first one is the 13th Amendment, which freed the slaves. Confederate states had to sign this before they joined the Union, but as you can see from those black codes and the re-election of Confederate officials, they didn't really want to. So the military is going to be there to help enforce that. Secondly, the 14th Amendment. This is a big one. It involves almost every Supreme Court decision in modern day decisions. And the 14th Amendment overturned Dred Scott. Dred Scott, remember, said that African Americans were not citizens and therefore had no protection underneath the law. And the 14th Amendment recognized African Americans as citizens and upheld that they have equal protection and due process rights under the law. This is a big one, and it's going to apply more than just to African Americans. Soon it's going to apply to women and other minorities. And in the 15th Amendment, it ensured the rights of all male citizens to vote, both in the North and the South, could not be denied on the condition of race, creed, or previous condition of servitude. Read into that slavery. There are 2 reasons for this. One, it was a right. The right to vote is an unlimited right according to this idea. They're going to find workarounds in it in the South. And 2, most freedmen are going to vote for Republicans. So this is a political move by Republicans. But these are the Reconstruction Amendments. In order to protect these amendments, Congress went so far as to impeach President Johnson. Johnson was not supporting the radicals. He refused to support the Freedmen's Bureau bill. He refused to support the 14th Amendment, and therefore Congress impeached him, put him on trial. Johnson was a Southerner who was loyal to the Union during the Civil War, so he didn't really have many friends, so he's just being obstinate. Johnson was not removed in this impeachment trial. Remember, impeachment does not mean kicked out of office. It means you're put on trial, and one potential punishment is to be kicked out of office. He wasn't kicked out of office, but he does fade into the background, and he lets the radical Republicans do pretty much whatever they want. The troops were put into the South under the Military Reconstruction Plan in order to fight the vigilantes and the KKK and other White League members. Please look at the picture on the left. This is a political cartoon. Obviously, there's not African Americans hanging in the picture, but it does say Ohio, a Northerner, and he's carrying a carpet bag. These are going to be carpetbaggers, and we'll get to that later, but people in the South didn't like Northern Republicans just as much as African Americans. And that's going to lead us into theme 2.